After what seems a lifetime, Mr. Pickman walks across the room exiting. He begins pulling the heavy rope, which causes the school bell to ring. Its hollow clanging announces the end of the school day. With the sound of the bell, the children emit a cheerful cry of, "Hooray, hooray, no more school today." Happily, they begin exiting the schoolhouse, some rushing out, some walking slowly. Kevin and young Perkins hurry to the door, only to be halted by the voice of Mr. Pickman, who calls for them to remain. The two then stand at the edge of the desk, as each and every child leaves the schoolhouse. Trina makes a mocking face at her brother as she departs the schoolhouse with a mocking laugh. Trina is closely followed by her sisters. The sound of their laughter slowly fades in the distance. As the sound of the children's laughter dies away, a brooding silence fills the room. Mr. Pickman glares at the two walking slowly and calmly. His face bears a strange expression as he closes and locks the door. He then turns and walks to the windows of the schoolhouse standing there. He slowly and methodically draws the blinds so that no light emanates from within. The teacher's movements are silent. The tentative motions reveal themselves only from the sound of an occasional board that groans ever so slightly. With his furtive steps, the creaking floorboard only builds the tension. The room is shrouded in an unnerving darkness. The young men are engulfed in absolute black, trapped within that Stygian cell. The only sign of Pickman's presence is the sound of him breathing. Young Perkins feels the grip of a hand, the fingers clamped tightly to his upper arm. The trembling fingers are that of a terrified Kevin. "Teacher?" Kevin nervously calls. No reply is received. "Teacher?" He again calls out through quivering lips. His reply is met with stifling silence, save for the creak of a floorboard in the distant corner of the room. From that corner, the sound of breathing changes. The breathing becomes labored, each breath growing shorter, deeper, heavier. Kevin's fear is reflected in the grip of his hand. The fingers dig deep into young Perkins' arm, squeezing. Electric currents of pain announced to his nervous system that his blood circulation is under threat. Young Perkins feels his arm tingling, slowly growing numb. He wants to cry out. He wants to be as brave as Kevin, who, though locked in absolute terror, again finds it within himself to call, "Teacher? Teacher?" Young Perkins wants to tell Kevin to shut up, to be silent. He wants to grab Kevin by the arm that clutches him so tightly, and flee. But the breathing, the heavy, labored breaths of whoever or whatever lurked in that inky well of pitch challenged him, daring him to move, if but a single step. As one finds it the wiser to remain still before the presence of a deadly viper, so young Perkins found it the wiser to remain motionless, frozen in place within the midst of that tomb. The halting breaths begin to morph, slowly changing into something deeper, heavier than the baritone, more menacing than a bass. With that, Kevin, through a nervous whisper that is nearly inaudible, begs for the two to flee. "You hear that?" Young Perkins cautiously replies with a hiss whispered. Yes, the breathing now is nothing human, nothing corporeal. Its grunting growls are nothing less than the sound that emanated from whatever the thing was that hounded their heels a few nights ago. The creaking floorboards indicated the creature's motion. It was slowly creeping towards them. In the rear of the schoolhouse, one of the desks was upended. It sounded as if it was slowly being pushed aside. The floorboards groan heavier from whatever approached, indicating its weight, its girth. Still, the young men remained silent, as if they were hindered by the Dark One. It was stalking them, not by sight, but by their scent. As the young men reached the window, Young Perkins lifted the blinds. A stream of light illuminated the room. Kevin fumbling with the latch that would release the locked window so that it could be raised for their escape. Young Perkins glances behind to see what? In that brief moment of terror, there was no sign of Mr. Pickman, no sign of any kind of creature. Kevin kept frantically working the latch. Young Perkins had trouble getting his attention. "Look, Kevin," he says. "Look, wait a minute." Kevin slowly calming. "What? What are you talking about?" There was no sign of anyone. The two boys' eyes scanned the room. The desks and chairs were overturned. Something had moved them, but who? What? "Look," Kevin pointed to the teacher's desk. Something was hiding behind it, something large. A slight glimpse of matted fur sent Kevin into a frenzy of action. Unlatching the window, Kevin forcefully raises it. Slamming the window up, the frightened youth, like a swimmer diving, plunges through the open window and into the brilliant glow of an autumn sun, whereupon he is instantly followed by young Perkins, who through his fear lands atop of his young companion. The young men rise and begin to run. It is only then that they realize that both he and Kevin had wet themselves. There was no time for embarrassment, no time for mirth. Their only thought was escape. What they needed most of all was distance. No farther had the boys made 50 paces. Then there came a shout. It was Pastor Jackson. He and the young widow were approaching the schoolhouse. "Hey," calls the pastor, "where you boys going in such a hurry?" The widow calls out, "Yes, Pastor Jackson came by my house to see my little man. He wanted to talk to you about a few things. I told him that it was past time. I told him that you should have been home a while ago. Kevin's little sister, Trina, stopped by to tell me that you two boys got into some trouble back there at the schoolhouse. She said that the teacher was keeping you after school." With a little giggle, "How many lines of standards did you two have to write on the chalkboard?" She then notices the young men's wet spot. "Oh my," the widow exclaims with embarrassment. "Did Mr. Pickman make you wet yourself?" She begins to get angry. "You don't mean to tell me he wouldn't let you even go to the restroom?" Pastor Jackson joins in, shaking his head. He becomes incensed. "That's not right. That ain't right at all. I don't mind that he don't go to church. I don't mind him registering colored folks to vote, as dangerous as it is. But if he is to be teaching here, he best start showing folks some respect around here." "Come on here," commands the widow. Angrily taking the young man by the arm, she leads him back in the direction of the schoolhouse. "We're going to have us a little talk with that Mr. Pickman." Kevin and young Perkins shouts out warnings of, "No, don't go in there. And no, ma'am, we don't need to see him. It's all right, Miss Hazel." All to no avail. The widow Hazel and Pastor Jackson are not having any of it. They are unbelievable. They continue pulling the boys along. The pastor continues to voice his discontent with the teacher's behavior. And to beat all, that Mr. Pickman didn't even show up at the funeral. Don't he know one of his students got laid in the ground yesterday? It is like he don't care about nothing. Lord, keep my tongue. Standing at the door, the pastor attempts to cool his anger, knocking on the closed door with a heavy hand. The two young men struggled to escape the widow's grip, which only tends to aggravate her. "Be still, you two." The young men are terrified at what lurked behind the closed door of the schoolhouse. Listen nervously. The two boys clenched their eyes in fearful anticipation of the emerging of something. Something gruesome. Some ghoulish escapee from Dante's Inferno. Some distorted, grotesque aberration from the twisted mind of Hieronymus Bosch. Something approached the door. The squeak of the floorboards illuminated the fact that the school is occupied. Someone is inside. The sound of furniture being moved is heard, then footsteps approach. The sound of the key is heard to turn. The lock clicks. The door slowly opened. Yes. Standing before them is the gray-blue eyes of Mr. Pickman. He is his normal self. He stands cool, calm, and collected. "Good afternoon," Mr. Pickman says with a smile, bidding the group entry. "Good afternoon, Pastor. Good afternoon. Miss Hazel, come in, please." The shock of seeing Mr. Pickman is too much for young Kevin, who there and then faints dead away, collapsing on the floor in the entryway. In doing so, he gains the attention of the group, whose primary concern is focused completely on young Kevin, who lay in senseless unconsciousness. "Kevin," calls Pastor Jackson. "Kevin." He repeats the young man's name again. "Kevin," all the while shaking the boy by the shoulders. "What he needs is some water," says the widow Hazel, her voice reflecting the level of her concern. "Water it is." With that, Mr. Pickman exits the schoolhouse and goes into the back, where the old-fashioned hand-cranked water pump rests. "Kevin," young Perkins calls, his voice joining the chorus of that of the pastor and the widow. "Kevin." Again and again, they repeat the young man's name like a mantra. "Kevin, Kevin, Kevin." The young widow presses her head against the young man's chest, listening for heartbeat. His heart is beating normally, she exclaims, relieved by the reassuring sound of the young man's beating heart. Kevin is indeed alive, but merely unconscious. Finally, the young man roused from his unconsciousness. "Where am I?" inquires Kevin, his mind still in a fog. Young Perkins relieved to see his friend unharmed. "Kevin, you fainted." Kevin's eyes begin to focus, looking at the three in disbelief. I what now?" He once more questions, uncertain as to exactly what just transpired. "Yeah," the widow joins in. "You fell out." Kevin looks at Pastor Jackson with questioning eyes. "I did what?" Pastor Jackson shakes his head in the affirmative and adds, "You didn't exactly have a fit. No, nothing like that. You just—" But before the pastor can finish his sentence, the figure of Mr. Pickman appears in the doorway. Bending down, his face looms just behind the pastor. The sight of Mr. Pickman's cold, blue-gray eyes causes Kevin to emit a little yelp, whereupon the young man once more swoons. "Maybe he's got some kind of fever," Mr. Pickman declares, his voice reflecting no emotion. "Perhaps you should take them home." "I guess you're right," agrees the pastor. Lifting Kevin in his arms, he turns to exit. Young Perkins, all the while examining the face of this strange necromancer. "Maybe we should get him to drink a little water," suggests the widow, looking at the tin cup of water held in Mr. Pickman's hand. "That's a thought," the pastor concurs. Young Perkins, distrustful of Pickman's intentions, declares, "Here, let me give it to him." Snatching the cup from Pickman's hand, he intentionally drops the cup, spilling all that it contains. Whether toxic or benign, young Perkins was taking no chances. "Oh no, I'm sorry." The young man presents Pickman with a false frown. Quickly snatching the cup up, young Perkins runs back to the pump and begins to work the handle. A rush of water washes the cup clean. Young Perkins smiles to himself, with the reassurance that he had foiled whatever malevolent intentions Pickman offered in that cup of water, if indeed it was merely water. The look of disgust on Pickman's face revealed otherwise. Testing the water with a sip, he found it cool, clear, refreshing. As the young man turns to deliver the cup, he is met by Pastor Jackson, who still carries an unconscious Kevin in his arms. "Here, let me give it to him." Pastor Jackson bends down, still cradling the inert boy. Young Perkins carefully places the cup to Kevin's lips, opening his mouth. He tilts the cup ever so slightly, letting in small amounts of cool, refreshing water. Kevin coughs a bit, spitting up small bits of water. It is all that is needed. Kevin's eyes slowly opened. "Pastor?" He speaks the pastor's name as if in a dream, his eyes slowly coming to focus as the widow Hazel joins the three, leaving Pickman alone in the schoolhouse. She informs that he felt it best if he remained inside, away from Kevin's sight. "Kevin?" Young Perkins, speaking in a soft tone. "Kevin, are you okay?" The widow bends down and begins stroking the young man's head with the affection of a mother to that of her newborn child. There. You're all right. Everything is going to be all right." Her gentle touch has a soothing effect. The young widow's voice calls for calm. With a gentle smile, Kevin returned the widow's affection with a smile that mirrors her own. Young Perkins gives out a sigh of relief. Pastor Jackson and the widow follow in kind. The peaceful moment is broken like the snap of a dry twig as Kevin looks at his surroundings and suddenly realizes exactly where he is. He begins to hyperventilate. Take me away from here. Take me back home." "Sure, let's go." With that, and Pastor Jackson announces their departure by shouting loud enough for Mr. Pickman to hear. Pastor begins to lift Kevin in his arms, all to his protests. "Don't fuss me, Pastor." Kevin commands. "Let me down. I ain't no baby. I can walk." The pastor acquiesces and releases the young man, who stands with a slight sway. Young Perkins throws his arm around Kevin's shoulders like buddy-buddy. The two boys exit the scene, flanked on both sides by the young widow and Pastor Jackson. The group walk in silence beneath the waning light of an autumn afternoon sun. From time to time, young Perkins glances over his shoulder, only to see the figure of the dark necromancer standing in the doorway of the schoolhouse, staring. Mr. Pickman remained there, standing rooted in the open door frame, until the size of the schoolhouse goes from a quarter to a nickel, then to the size of a dime, finally disappearing completely from view. A sense of ease rushes over young Perkins.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different, a really intense focus on just one source.
That's right. We're looking closely at Chapter 15 of Curse the Mandrake, Choosing Sides.
And our mission isn't just to summarize the plot. We want to unpack how the author actually builds that feeling of suspense, the fear.
Exactly. It's all about the mechanics. How does this scene with the two boys, Kevin and young Perkins, and their teacher, Mr. Pickman, create such terror?
Right. It's not just a scary story. We're looking at how conflicting realities are set up.
Yeah, the supernatural horror versus the very human, chilling composure of Pickman.
So the basic setup. Two kids kept after school. Sounds normal enough.
Detention.
But it goes way beyond detention, like almost instantly. It's a fast descent into sheer terror.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Section 1, maybe call it the anatomy of trapped terror.
I like that. It begins with the school bell, right? End of the day.
Yeah, you hear that cheerful, hooray, hooray, no more school today, kids flooding out.
Including Kevin's sister, Trina, who's apparently mocking him, adds a little bit of everyday realism before things turn.
But then, bam, Mr. Pickman stops Kevin and young Perkins, tells them to stay. The mood shifts immediately.
And what Pickman does next is, well, it's deliberate after the other kids are gone.
He doesn't say much, does he? He just acts. Silently closes the door. Locks it.
Locks it. That's key. Then he draws the blinds.
Methodically, one by one, plunging the room into what the text calls unnerving darkness.
It gets darker and darker until it's described as absolute black, like a Stygian cell.
that deliberate removal of sight.
Yeah.
It's instant vulnerability, isn't it? You can't react to what you can't see. It's a classic horror technique.
And with sight gone, everything hinges on sound, or the lack of it.
Right. The author really focuses on the auditory details. You hear Pickman breathing.
Just breathing, and the floorboards creaking when he moves, those furtive steps.
It makes every tiny sound amplified. And then there's the silence around the sounds.
Which is why Kevin's nervous call, "Teacher," just hangs there. It's unanswered, making the silence feel heavy, threatening.
Then you see the physical toll this takes, even before anything concrete happens.
Yeah, the text mentions Kevin's trembling fingers. He's gripping Perkins' arm.
So tightly it causes electric currents of pain. Perkins' arm actually goes numb.
Wow. That's intense fear manifesting physically.
And Perkins has this internal conflict. He wants to be brave, like he thinks Kevin is being.
But his instinct tells him something else.
Yeah, his gut feeling is that it's smarter to just stay completely still, like you would before the presence of a deadly viper.
A deadly viper. That comparison really ups the stakes, doesn't it? It's not just detention anymore. It feels lethal.
Absolutely. And that perceived danger then shifts into something more undeniable. Through sound again.
The breathing changes.
It stops being just, normal human breathing. It becomes labored.
How so?
The text says, each breath growing shorter, deeper, heavier. It's building.
And then it morphs into something else entirely.
Yeah. Nothing human, nothing corporeal. It's described with grunt growls.
Ugh. That sounds terrifying on its own.
And crucially, the author connects it back, links it to whatever the thing was that hounded their heels a few nights ago.
Ah, so it validates their previous experiences.
Yeah.
This isn't just in their heads. It's real, and it's back.
Exactly. It confirms the supernatural element isn't just imagination.
So the author strips away sight, builds tension with small sounds and silence, and then transforms the nature of the threat just by changing the breathing.
And notice, we still haven't seen anything definitive yet.
Right. Why delay that visual reveal? Wouldn't seeing the monster or whatever it is be scarier sooner?
You'd think so, maybe, but often what you imagined is far worse. The fear of the unknown, inferred threat, that could be more powerful.
So the author makes us track it using other cues.
Precisely. The creaking floorboards again, they groan under its movement, suggesting significant weight, its girth.
You hear an upended desk being pushed aside. You feel this large thing moving closer in the pitch black.
It maximizes the suspense, that slow creep towards them in the dark. It's agonizing for the characters and for you reading it.
Okay, so the tension is unbearable. Then finally, a break. Light.
Perkins managed to lift one of the blinds, just a crack.
Yeah.
A stream of light cuts through the darkness.
And that gives them a chance. They scramble for the window latch.
Frantically fumbling with it. But in that moment, Perkins glances back.
And he sees something.
Yes. But again, it's not some big, clear reveal. The room's a mess. Chairs and desks overturned.
Okay.
And hiding behind the teacher's desk, he catches just a slight glimpse of matted fur.
Matted fur. That's it.
That's it. Just that tiny detail. But it's enough. It's the physical proof.
Proof that the sounds, the breathing, the weight, it was all real. It wasn't Pickman playing a trick.
Exactly. It confirms the horrific reality they were trapped in.
And that glimpse is the final straw. They need to get out now.
They smash through the window, basically plunge out into the brilliant glow of an autumn sun.
The contrast must be intense, from absolute black to brilliant sunlight.
And the immediate aftermath. The author includes this really brutal grounding detail.
What's that?
As soon as they get to their feet, they realize they both had wet themselves.
Oh, wow. That says everything about the level of terror.
It completely bypasses any sense of shame or embarrassment. It's pure, involuntary physical reaction to extreme fear. Their only thought is escape.
Get away. Put distance between them and that schoolhouse.
Pure survival instinct.
But then, just as they're processing this horror, the narrative yanks us somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, it's a sharp turn. They run about 50 paces, still in shock, presumably.
And suddenly, Pastor Jackson and Mrs. Hazel, a young widow from the community, appear.
Reality intrusion. And it's jarring because the adults have a completely different understanding of what just happened.
How so? What do they know?
Well, Miss Hazel says Trina, Kevin's sister, told them the teacher was keeping the boys after school. Standard stuff.
Okay, so they know about the detention.
Right. But then they see the boys, panicked, maybe scraped up from the window, and they notice the wet spot on their clothes.
Ah, and they jump to conclusions.
The wrong conclusion, but a logical one from their perspective. They assume Mr. Pickman was just being cruel,
That he was so angry he wouldn't let you even go to the restroom?
Exactly. They frame it entirely as harsh discipline by a mean teacher. They have absolutely no idea about the matted fur or the grunt growls.
Or the feeling of fleeing a ghoulish escapee from Dante's Inferno, as the boys felt.
None of it. And this is where the other layer of conflict comes in really strong. The social, political context.
Because Pastor Jackson already has issues with Pickman.
Oh, yeah. Several grievances. One, Pickman doesn't attend church. He's secular.
Okay, a source of tension in that community, probably.
Definitely. Also, Pickman apparently didn't show up at a student's funeral the day before, which is seen as disrespectful.
And then there's the bigger issue.
The political one. Pickman is registering colored folks to vote, which the pastor explicitly calls dangerous.
So, Pickman is seen as an outsider, possibly an agitator by some in the community, including the pastor.
Precisely. He's already under suspicion for reasons completely separate from whatever happened in that classroom.
So the adults, particularly the pastor and Mrs. Hazel, are described as incensed, but about the wrong thing.
Completely. They're angry about the perceived restroom denial and Pickman's general perceived faults.
And they decide to confront him.
Yep. They basically command the boys to turn around and go back to the schoolhouse with them.
Oh, no. Back there.
Ignoring the boys' terrified pleas, you hear them saying, "No, don't go in there," and trying to placate Mrs. Hazel. "It's all right, Mrs. Hazel."
But the adults are determined. They're marching back for a confrontation.
Dragging these traumatized kids back towards the source of their terror. The dramatic irony is thick here. The reader knows what the adults don't.
And this leads to the moment of, well, deception or revelation, depending on how you see it.
The confrontation scene. They get back to the schoolhouse door. It opens.
And what do they see? The monster. An angry Pickman.
Neither. They see Mr. Pickman looking perfectly normal.
Normal.
Cool, calm, and collected. Even has a slight smile. He greets them politely. "Good afternoon, Pastor. Good afternoon, Miss Hazel. Come in, please."
Whoa. The whiplash. From matted fur and grunt growls to polite teacher.
It's too much for Kevin. The dissonance between the monster in the dark and the calm man in the light.
He faints.
Faints dead away. Collapses right there in the entryway.
Understandable, really. The shock must be immense.
And then it gets even more telling. They manage to rouse Kevin.
Okay.
But as soon as he focuses on Pickman, who's bending over him, he locks onto Pickman's cold, blue-gray eyes and faints a second time.
A second time, just from looking in his eyes.
And Pickman's reaction, so chillingly detached, he just says dryly, he's got some kind of fever.
Wow. Deflecting, making it seem medical, completely ignoring the obvious terror.
It's masterful manipulation, perhaps. But this scene really belongs to young Perkins. He doesn't faint.
What does Perkins do? He saw the matted fur. He knows.
He maintains his suspicion. He watches Pickman's every move, distrusting the calmness, the normality.
He doesn't buy the act.
Not at all. Especially when Pickman offers Kevin a cup of water.
Seems like a kind gesture.
That's how the adults would see it.
Yeah.
But Perkins sees potential danger. He distrusts the teacher's intentions.
So what does he do about the water?
This is such a key moment. He snatches the cup himself.
Okay.
And then he intentionally drops it. Spills the water everywhere.
Why?
He explicitly states he's taking no chances. Whether the water was toxic or benign, he wasn't going to let Kevin drink it.
Yeah.
He decides to go get fresh water from the pump outside instead.
That's a bold move, a direct act of defiance based purely on suspicion.
And it works. It forces Pickman's hand, metaphorically, because Pickman's reaction to the spilled water isn't anger about the mess.
What is it?
It's a fleeting look of disgust on Pickman's face.
Disgust, not annoyance.
Disgust, which, for Perkins, confirms everything. It reveals Pickman's intentions were otherwise, not benign.
Ah. So Perkins' paranoia was justified. That look confirms the teacher's mask slipped, just for a second.
It connects the seemingly normal man back to the danger. It tells Perkins, and tells us, the reader, that this calm facade might be just as dangerous, maybe more so, than the creature in the dark.
The man and the monster might be one and the same, or at least connected.
Exactly. And the scene ends with that lingering sense of threat. The adults eventually take the boys away.
And Pickman?
Pickman just stands there, rooted in the open door frame, staring after them.
Staring, until they're completely out of sight.
Until the schoolhouse disappears from young Perkins' view. Only then does Perkins feel any sense of ease. And even then, it feels temporary.
Wow, what a scene. It really layers these different types of fear and conflict.
So let's synthesize this a bit for the listener. We've seen the author expertly craft two distinct conflicts, haven't we?
Yeah, first there's the raw supernatural horror, the monster in the dark, the physical terror.
And then, slammed right up against it, is this very human conflict. The social tensions, the political disagreements, Pastor Jackson's grievances.
And Pickman's incredibly controlled, maybe deceptive public persona.
Right. The brilliance here is how the scene forces you to question which is the real danger, or if they're somehow intertwined.
Is the monster the main threat? Or is the calculating man who can hide it the bigger problem?
It leaves you, the reader or listener, in this state of unease and confusion. Which reality is worse? The matted fur or the cold blue-gray eyes?
So a takeaway for anyone encountering a narrative like this, pay attention to those tiny details.
Absolutely. The shift in the sound of breathing, that single glimpse of fur, the spilled cup of water, and Pickman's micro-expression.
Those are the clues the author gives you to navigate the ambiguity. They're the breadcrumbs linking the monstrous to the mundane.
They help you try to distinguish the creature from the mask.
Which leads us to our final, provocative thought for you to consider.
Think about Pastor Jackson's complaints. They're about Pickman not going to church, missing a funeral, registering voters. Things rooted in social and political friction.
So, was Mr. Pickman just a misunderstood, maybe somewhat aloof, but ultimately normal teacher who was unfairly targeted by local gossip and political anxieties?
Or was that cool, calm, collected demeanor, that ability to appear perfectly normal right after terrorizing two children, or allowing them to be terrorized, actually the most terrifying mask of all? Did it, in fact, validate the monstrous reality the boys escaped?
Something to think about. Was the man the monster, or just a man caught in monstrous circumstances? The text leaves you wondering.